Now let's go ahead and do the second part, because so far this is what actually Alam has prepared, and he has done a very good job. Now what I want to do is, instead of sending these emails, as I said, every time when you apply for the email, when you have opened the leave tracker and you are applying for the 1st and the 2nd April, instead of getting the two emails, sending out the two emails, so we just need the one email with all the details. So now I'm going to actually create one workbook. When the workbook when you're going to open this leave tracker, there has to be one workbook which gets created without letting the user know about it, and in that workbook we keep on saving all the the leaves. And then once we are sure that he has done his job and he's closing the file, then when he's going to close the file, the email would go, and it is going to open that workbook where we have compiled all the dates, and there's a loop which is we are going to run that loop, and it is going to capture all the the leaves one by one. So let's go ahead and let's start this. So I go to the Visual Basic. Now I'm going to click here in this workbook. I go and select this workbook, open event. So here you will write workbooks.add, and then you will save that workbook first of all by some name, and I'm going to just give it a name called first of all I'll give the path where I want to do that. So I just save that in the users, and I'm going to concatenate this with the environment function. This is how I'm going to do that, so that it works on every machine, because everybody has their own username. And then desktop, if you're thinking that why I'm doing the desktop path, why I'm giving the desktop path, you can give any path, that's your choice guys, right? But I'll give it desktop because if I'm going to give this D drive or E drive, I'm not sure whether my audience is going to have that path, D drive or E drive. So desktop is always available, so I can do that. It's easily, it's a it's always be going to be available. So now once you have this active workbook saved, as I said, we will not like to display that to the user, right? Everything happens in the background. So you're going to close the file, active workbook.close, and you can write here true. Any changes if you want to do, it is going to be true. Well, anyways, you're not going to do any change, so that's fine. You can write here false as well, or just leave it like that. That's okay. Now once this is going to work, what is the next thing I want to do? Well, if I come back to the calendar sheet here, instead of this call send email, because this we will write when the user is going to close the workbook. Okay, so here I will write compile. There's one more macro which I'm going to create, the compile. I go to the module, and here we will get the same workbook opened, which we have created when user is going to has opened this, actually the leave calendar. So I just go in that and I feed all the leaves details there. Okay, so I'm going to use the workbook dot open. So which workbook we want to open? Obviously I want to open the same workbook which we have created here. So I'm just going to copy the path from here, and I'm going to actually paste that here in the bracket. I write here Control V like this. Okay, now once you have done that, what is the next thing you want to do? The next thing I want to do is to actually go in the sheet 1, and from the sheet 1, obviously it will be the sheet 1. So I will just write here that from the range A maybe 200 or whatever you want to write, because nobody can apply for these many loops or these many leaves, I beg your pardon. And then we're going to actually use the up row and offset one row down, right? So I just use this one row down, so that every time when the loop up, they're gonna apply for the leaves, that will accumulate below each other. So the active cell is going to hold the value which is going to come from the PL date, and the PL date, that it's my global variable. That's why subscriber declared this as a global variable, so that it can be used anywhere. And finally we are going to close that workbook, and this time we will definitely write that it has to save the changes, right? So just do not forget to write the true here, otherwise it will ask you for the prompt, do you want to save the changes, and user would come to know that there is something happening. So that's the first thing. Now there's nothing like that we are trying to hide any information, but it from the user, but it doesn't look nice, right? Let us do everything very silently, right? So this is done now. So active workbook is going to be closed. Now we want to run this. So first of all, let us do the quick testing. So this workbook is opened. So first of all, I'm going to run this. Let us see. So you see that the workbook is created and it is going to save. You can see test.xls, and the workbook is closed also. So if I just take you to my desktop, I think you should be able to see that. So now we're going to where is my test actually? Yeah, that's the one. is the file. Look, this is the file which we have created. Perfect. Okay, so now so this is always going to work whenever this leave tracker will open. Okay, and because you have written the true, so it will always overwrite the first workbook if it is created. It will not ask you for anything that this file already exists. You know, generally when you save as the file and if the name is there, it asks you. So when you're closing it, you're saying that true, so that's fine, right? Or maybe just in case, I think if it is yeah, it is going to ask you, so you can write here application dot display alert, because it is going to ask you definitely that the file already exists, right? So you can write here false. Now if I run this file again, look at this. I'm going to run this, see that the workbook gets added and I didn't get any prompt. Test is created and the active workbook is closed, right? If I don't write this line, then what will happen? Look at this. Workbook added. Now it is going to save as test. Obviously you know that the test file is there, so you will have to press yes every time. So that is what we are trying to do. We don't want any display alert, so I just keep it like display alert equals to false. Perfect, right? Now what is the next thing I want to do? The next thing I want to do is so now I go to the calendar and I put the break code here. Now let us see how it is going to work. So I apply here the planned leave, which is PL. Now please ensure that user should not be able to enter here anything else, because if I write here 4, again the event will run, because 4 is a part of this entire table. So the email will go that Anchal Pandey has applied for the leave for the 1st of April, which is very wrong. So you need to ensure that this always should be PL, right? In the drop down, PLSL or P whatever, right? So that you can do simply using the data validation. I'm not gonna do that, but I'm just giving you a suggestion. So I write here PL and I press enter, and now obviously this will go here, so it will capture all the details. You see that we got the 1st April. Now the important part comes. So now instead of going to the send email, we are going to open the workbook. So now the workbook is open, and now from here it goes to the A2 and it's gonna print that value and it's gonna post that value. Perfect. Right, done. This is cool. Now again I come back here and I write here PL. Let us say now again the macro will run, so we will have a new date which is going to be 2nd of April. So again the same workbook gets opened, okay, and here now it goes in the A3. That is the reason we use this offset 1,0, because it uses basically control up arrow and then moves one cell down. So the value will be printed here, and before I do that I just double click here. You can see that all the basically the leaves are getting accumulated, right? So if I just close this, and now I'm gonna run this macro very quickly. Let me remove the break code. Suppose I applied for one more date, which is PL. Now you see that the macro is working. I again applies for the PL, and you see that the macro is working. Whenever I do something, there's for a moment you see the blank screen which comes. This is that workbook which we are getting it open. So this is the test one. So let me just open the test one and let us see if the dates are there or not. You got all the dates, very nice. And the loop will always start with the A2, because that's your first date. Now what is the next thing I want to do? Well, the next thing I want to do, when I close this file, then what should happen? The email should go. You come back here in this workbook, and here you choose the another event, which is going to be the close. So before close is what actually you can choose here. So if I just move up, I should see here before close. So before closing this, let's go to the macro which you have created here, which is called the send email. So I'm just going to write here that you should be able to send the email. But then here also we have one twist, because we need to ensure that all the dates should come. So what you will do is, when you come here in the send email, before you do anything, you get to open that workbook again, obviously. So I'm just going to write here this workbook. Let's get it opened. I just go in the up, I just get it open, and then now we're gonna run the loop. The loop will run dim I as long. Let us say I declare I for I equals to 2 to whatever value you have there, right? So I'm just going to write here 800. That the workbook, the test one I'm talking about, guys. So it is going to capture the last row, because we want to run loop that many times. So it is going to capture that, and next. And now what we will do very smartly, I'm going to declare here one more variable, which is store, for example store. And what I will do, I will say that store has to be equals to value of a cell which is in the row number 2. So I declare here I as column number 1 dot value, and then it has to be concatenated with the space, so that every time So we have this date coming, the new date will be there, right? So you concatenate it with this store and, you know, I comma 1. I'll show you what exactly it is going to do. So I put the break code here. Now suppose, let me first of all save the file as well. What happens, I'm going to actually close this file. For example, I put the break code here. Now you are going to close this file. Look at this event will fire because you are closing. So before closing, it will go in the send email. Now here it should actually open the file. Now in your file, when you have that file opened, it already, you know, shows you all the dates. So now you're going to start from the second row and you will go till 6. 2 to 6 means that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 times the loop will run. Now what is the first value you want to capture? Obviously the value which you have in the second row first column, which is 1st of April, right? So store is always of you know, it is empty, so empty will not give any impact. When you run it, you have the date like this with the space you can see here. The next time when again run, because the loop still has to run, now I is going to be changed to 3. So you have now value in the third row on the first column, which is going to be 2nd of April, and you already have got this store from the previous run, you know, when the loop ran for the first time, 1st April. So again you have your dates now. So in this way you see that the dates are getting compiled. Nice, right? I'm loving this option. So guys, you can see here all the details are done, and finally when the details are done, now the email is going to be drafted. Before you actually send out the email, so what we can do here is maybe we can close this workbook, right? So after this you can write here that active workbook should be closed. So you can write here active workbook dot close, and you can write here, like to save the changes. Well, we don't want to save the changes, so you can write here false as well. So if I just run this line again, right, and I'm gonna run this, so let's go ahead and separate. See that the file get closed. Now the email is going to be drafted. Outlook part has started, which I have already explained. So now here, instead of this the PL date, you know what you're gonna write is you're gonna write here store. That's very important because store is going to show all the emails. So there we go. Let us see how it is going to work this time. I have this, and in the body everything is there, end with, end sub, and finally the workbook will also get closed, right? Before it get closed, I want to see how the leave looks like. You see here Pandey has applied the leave for all the dates. This is coming, and there is just one email which we have drafted, right? So this is pretty cool, and I want to save this code also because I think the workbook is going to close. Look at this, guys. The email will be sent if you don't use the dot display. So I think this is perfect. I want to save the changes. Well, no. So I just open this file again, leave tracker open. So I'm going to open the file. Now what happens, so every time, you know, when the user is going to open this file, this test file is going to be created, right? So please ensure that if a user is opening this leave tracker 4 times in a day, I think you are there to work here, right? I mean, you have your leaves priority, but I don't think so you're going to open the leave tracker even more than once, right? If you are opening it regularly, then what will happen, this test file will be deleted first, because you know that right now if I show you, this test file has got the 4 or 5 leaves which you have applied, right? Now obviously if you have applied for these leaves, the next time you will not apply for these leaves, because you know you had already applied for this. You will look for the another option. Now what happens when you open this leave tracker, this test file will be replaced. If you remember code which we have written in that workbook open event, right? So new file will be there and the previous details will be dated. So now if I just the file is open, and if I go back in the test, it should be empty. Let me see that. Look at this, guys, it is empty. So now again the user is going to write, you know, for example, if I just applied for these leaves and I go ahead and write for PL for this, or maybe let's say I'm gonna write here the PL here. This time I press enter, and look at this, guys, PL is going there, and I'm gonna enter here PL again. This is done, and again I write here PL. Right now I want to see that I applied for 1st April, 2nd April, 3rd April. So I just close this. I did my job, and now this is going to, you know, the macro is going to work. So I just run here F5, right? It was on the break code, I think that's why it stopped there, but in your case it is not going to be you know, working that way. Look at this, guys, we got the Alam has applied for the lease for this 3. Wonderful. And email would go because you would use .send, as I said. So this leave tracker will also be going to save. So if I just cancel this right now, what you can do, you can also save the file, right? So that the prompt should not come. So ultimately what you can do is you can write here that this workbook dot save. Okay, and that's it. So you will not be able to get, you won't be able to get any prompt. And then finally you can write here application dot exit. I think this should work. Quit, sorry. So even the Excel blank layout will not be there, right? So I just close this, and I'm going to close this file. Let me save everything. So while closing, it is going to send the email again, right? And you can see that it's done, and now there is no Excel. You can see, guys, here there's no Excel coming, right? This is wonderful, isn't it? So I just say no. Again, I open the file. Let me do one more time. I open the leave tracker, and this time let us see what is going to happen. So now I am going to apply it for the let us say Vikas. So I just write here PL and look at this, and I close the file, and look at this. Now let us see how it is going to work. If I close this, you look at this, guys, email drafted, and there is no Excel file which you are able to see. Okay. Now one thing which I definitely would love to do is that, because in order to not show that something is happening, because you see the white kind of a screen comes for 1 or 2 seconds, that means because that workbook gets open. So what you can do is here I will not do that. I will not show you because we have already made a very long video. You can write here application dot screen update equals to false, and then before when you do that, this save, you can that point in time write here application screen updating back to true. It means that the screen will not show any movement. For example, I save this file, close this file, show you. Let me do that. Well, it's hardly going to make any difference for another 2 or 3 seconds, right? Just let me just there's some error. Let me see that. What is the error? Just let me. Why this email is drafted? Why this email is drafted? That's very strange. I'll tell you the reason. I think there is one more issue. What if the user opens this workbook, this leave calendar, and he or she doesn't apply for the leave? This will happen. The blank email would go like this, and there would be error which would come, right? So you need to, now there is one more thing which we now need to work on. Let me open the file. Because if you're not going to enter something again, when the workbook is going to close, this event will always run. This event will run, workbook close, and while closing it will go in the send email. So here when it is going to work, this file will be totally blank. Why blank? Because you haven't applied for any PL. Then ultimately you will have the error here, because this is going to be 0, right? This is also going to be 0. So in that case, what you can do is, if the user opened the leave tracker but he or she changed his and her mind that they don't want to apply the leave, then why don't we do one thing? Before the loop actually runs here, we will simply put the condition that if active workbook, so I write here active workbook, which is going to be my test file. If the sheet, the sheet number 1, if the cell A2 is going to be blank, then because A2 is the beginning, that is the first leave when you apply, that will go in the A2. If that is going to be blank, then what should happen? It should exit from the macro. It should exit from the macro, and at the same time it should close the workbook as well. So you write here active workbook and dot close, and you can write here save changes, true, false, whatever you want to write, and then exit the macro. If the cell is not empty, then obviously we will go in the end if. This is, I think, the best way, right? So in that way it should work now. Okay, so I close this file, and now suppose I open this file, I didn't apply for any leave. So what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to close this. Let us see what is going to happen. So I just go ahead and close this. Right, I open the file again. There will be no blank email, because immediately it will capture that cell is blank and it will exit from there, right? So suppose I changed my mind, I didn't apply for the leave. Let me see, I close this file. Oh great, this is very nice. Now I open the file again, the leave tracker. I'm gonna open the tracker again, and this time let me just do this quickly. Just gonna write here PL. So it's a Shivam Jan, and then I press enter, and again I press PL, and Now when I'm going to close this, look at this, what will happen. So it is closed, and it should actually get closed. It is not getting closed, or what? It is closed, guys, and Shivam Jam has applied for these 2 days. So we are done with this. So I just click on the yes. So that's how, guys, you can create this. And I do apologize if you're hearing some background noise. I'm so sorry for that. It might be very irritating for you. So I just show you this code. I just maximize the window. This is the first code. You can pause the video. You can see the entire code here. And then you can definitely go here and you can see this code as well, which we have done. And finally, the important one, which we have written in the sheet 2 calendar. That's the code for you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this long session and it has given you fantastic learning. So that's it. I'll see you soon with another exciting project. Thank you so much for watching.